Anybody who's familiar with how Amazon works and their search algorithm, you don't just rank on the number one spot overnight. You typically rank on like page 2 or 3 or 4, right? If you're not on page 1, it doesn't matter what page you're on. Page 2 or page 50, no one's going to find you. So you really need to kind of get established. You need to throw some advertising money at your new products that are launched. Over time, they'll progressively rank organically better and better. And the ideal spot you want to be in is the organic rank 1 spot. The more products you have there, the more money you're going to make.
These days, it seems like everybody has an online store. But how much can you really make selling products on Amazon? For Ryan Hogue, the answer is around $30,000 a month. And if you want to hear his advice for how to start a 7-figure Amazon FBA business, you'll want to listen to this interview. Regular listeners might recognize Ryan's name from our previous interview, where we talked about starting a print-on-demand business. Today, we'll dig into how to start an FBA business from scratch, from how to choose a profitable niche to his proven strategies for attracting customers. Let's get started. Ryan, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the invite to return and talk about another kind of aspect of my complementary e-commerce businesses.
Yeah, so let's dive in. Let's start out with what is your history with Amazon FBA? How'd you get started? When? And why did you dive into Fulfilled by Amazon?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like it was really popular 2015, 2016. I think that was maybe a year or two after some people that dove in early were making really kind of almost easy money. Now, this is just my take from the outside looking in, because at the time, I was just collecting information about FBA and didn't know firsthand like what it really entailed. But, there was definitely an advantage to jumping in, the earlier, the better. And I would listen to podcasts and whatnot, and people were making money hand over fist, almost just due to the reduced competition. Obviously, the more sellers there are on Amazon, the harder it's going to be because there's only so many products at the top of page 1. But ultimately, I did a lot of research. I tried to do it myself, and I struggled to figure it out because it really there's maybe today in 2022 it's a little bit easier, but back then, like I don't know if it was just me. Maybe it was just me, but I ended up having to pay somebody to coach me, and once a week minimum, we got together at night and we did it over the internet, but we just sat down and we went through the kind of the progression, and ultimately that got me where I wanted to be. After a couple months, I had my first product launched.
So I realize that the introduction in that first question sort of presumes that our audience knows what Amazon FBA business is, but can you fill us in on what exactly that is and how it might differ from other types of e-commerce?
Got you. Well, that's a great point. And in case you weren't familiar with Amazon FBA, well, Amazon is the largest e-commerce website in the world. And so I always say, follow the customers. I know it's really insightful, right? If you want to sell things, it's best to be where the customers are. So I followed them to Amazon and I said, I need to sell on Amazon. Step 2, how do I do that? So I realized that, and it's funny, I wasn't even paying for Amazon Prime, even though many, many people around the world now do pay for Amazon Prime. When you sell Amazon FBA products, the FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon. And what that allows us to do is outsource the storage and fulfillment of products as well as returns to Amazon, right? They've got the trained employees, they've got the warehouses, they've got the infrastructure. I've even toured an FBA facility myself. I've seen it firsthand how it works. So I decided to outsource that to them. And what's cool is when you sell products that are fulfilled by Amazon, you get the little Prime eligible check mark next to your listings, which vastly increases your click-through rates and essentially like how much your products are going to be purchased, because of the number of people that pay for Amazon Prime.
Now, when we talked to you about print on demand, that was a business that you made very clear that is something that you could start out with $0 investment, kind of start making money. Is this the kind of same situation, or is there some upfront cost to getting this business off the ground?
So unlike print on demand, where you can get started selling products with no monetary investment, FBA, the nature of this business is that you need to have some money that you can deploy because you need to purchase your products ahead of time. And essentially the way that I've always done it, I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but I've, looked overseas. So I'll almost always end up working with companies in China. They have great manufacturing infrastructure there. And I've actually been to China as well and met up with companies and my freight forwarder. I've been doing this for years, so I had that benefit. And, over there, they can manufacture in bulk for us. So I'll find somebody that can manufacture what I need, or I can pay somebody to manufacture, if it doesn't exist already, to basically create a mold and, typically produce it. That's going to cost money, obviously. And in the case of my very first product, I tried to keep things simple per the recommendation of the person I paid to coach me. They said, keep it simple, make sure it's not going to break, price point within a certain range. Just general, they're not requirements, but they're probably best practices. Generally speaking, you want to keep it simple when you're getting started. I spent $2,400 on my first product. That $1,600 covered manufacturing and $800 covered shipping by air. Okay. And I was willing to pay extra to get it shipped by air because that meant it was going to arrive quicker and I would start getting those sales rolling in faster.
Can you talk us through some of those first setup steps? How do you get going from scratch?
I'll try to condense it. All right. Because the way that I teach people, I took a cue from the person I paid that taught me. And I realized, you can also make money teaching people this if there's, demand for it. And I know this is one of those areas where a lot of people do need the oversight from someone who's done it before. But so the description I'm going to give now is not what you would necessarily get from me if we had, 5 hours to sit down and actually talk about the exact steps. But to start, you're going to sell through Amazon Seller Central. So this is, you can find it through Google or you can just type sellercentral.amazon.com in your browser. This is the portal. It's almost like the back end portal for Amazon sellers. We know if we go to amazon.com, that's the front end for buyers. When we go to Seller Central, it is exclusively for people that want to sell on Amazon. And you're going to need to create a seller account. And over the years, it's gotten a little bit more complicated. For instance, now I think a lot of people have to do like video interviews and kind of prove their identity with another human. So over the years, it's gotten a little bit stricter and stricter, but it's not something that should deter anybody unless you're planning on like stealing somebody's identity and trying to open an account there. But so you should be able to open your account. From there, you should go to the inventory tab and add your product. And it's not a very intuitive workflow as you might imagine it would be, given the number of products in the Amazon catalog. And I'm not trying to deter people. Again, I love when there's a barrier of entry as opposed to, no barrier to entry with businesses. Like I'm willing to put in the work to face the learning curves. If there's monetary investments, like I'm fortunate enough to, like I didn't quit my job prior to starting my Amazon business. I wasn't, that gung ho about it. I said, I'm going to keep my job and do this in parallel. And then hopefully one day it'll set me free, which fortunately, it did a couple years later. But before you add a product, you're obviously going to need a product to sell. And that's where you get into the whole like product research and validation. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I would recommend spending some time on, because when you're deploying money as an investment, in this case, in physical products, physical inventory, you want to make, at a minimum, you want to make that money back. And ideally, you want to make a profit. And the more research you do, there are, things that we can quantify that allow us to make informed decisions as opposed to just guessing and saying, I want to sell this, because there are always people that say, yeah, I want to sell this. And I'm like, it's best not to have that in your mind before you start, be open-minded, because you can do some research and you might find something that has a much higher likelihood of success. Or, you can go to Amazon and they make some data available to us that allows us to estimate like how much revenue a certain product or niche is doing a month. And if you want to make, $50,000 a month selling a product, but you're selling a product where we can look right now and we see it's only selling $20,000 a month, that's not realistic, right? Unless you're going to send all that extra traffic to Amazon, which is so much harder than just finding a niche that's doing $1 million a month and carving out, 5% of that.
Can you give us some of those other steps that maybe that you have taken to verify a specific product within a niche? Because obviously, like you said, there's a massive rabbit hole to go down in maybe choosing what niche you're going to be in. But how do you go in there and verify that demand is going to be there for the product?
Yeah, so Amazon makes a data point available to us that as a buyer, you would probably just scroll right past and not care about, and you may have seen it, but it may have never registered in your head that you saw it, called bestseller rank, or BSR for short. This allows us to see how well a product in their catalog is ranked relative to other products in that category. So every product in Amazon's catalog is categorized, and every category has its own number one bestseller. So with BSR, the lower the number, the better. The lowest you'll see is a number one bestseller, as you would guess. And based on the BSR, really the numeric range, as a function of the category something's listed in, you can guesstimate how well that product is selling, how many sales it makes a day, a week, a month. Now, doing this in your own head is a crazy task that I don't think anybody's up for. Fortunately, there are tools out there that assist us, that have really, really, really smart people working day and night to perfect the algorithms that do these projections. My favorite, my go-to since the beginning is Jungle Scout. Okay, and you can find out more about them at junglescout.com. These are pay to use, but fortunately, I think you can just do a monthly plan. And typically, if you can knock out your research in 1 month, you save yourself some money by just paying whatever it costs for a month. Money well worth the investment, if you ask me. No one's paying me to say that. It's just because, again, we're making a monetary investment here. Most people are going to, I think everybody's safe to say their first product launch is going to cost over $1,000. The cheapest I've ever seen somebody do it. I had somebody come through my course 2 years ago, and they had a constraint when it came to finances. And I think they got their first product launched for $1,400 that included shipping. But that really impairs your research process, because it means the average product you find, you're not going to be able to sell, because you just know from looking at it that the costs are going to be too high, right? So it just makes your research process take longer. But yeah, so I'd recommend Jungle Scout. Other options though, there's a great option called Helium 10 as well. Those are the big two titans in the Amazon niche research industry, I would say.
Talk to us about scalability of an FBA business. What makes it scalable, and are there things that business owners should be doing from the beginning that will help them grow more quickly?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about FBA specifically, the fulfilled by Amazon aspect, is we do not need to house the inventory, somewhere in our house. I've gone down that rabbit hole before. I know many entrepreneurs have as well. My girlfriend's currently actually going through that. If you look in the basement, there's a bunch of inventory for her dog brand, but she's also doing FBA. She's just still in the infancy stage where, she's kind of testing the waters, trying to make sure that she feels like it's validated before investing money. But when it comes to scalability, this is the beauty of it, right? We also are outsourcing production in a normal scenario. It's not a requirement. I always want to come back to that. And I don't want to, make you think that it's required to hire a factory in China, but generally speaking, you're going to get the competitive rates by outsourcing overseas, whether it's China, whether it's India or somewhere else. There's lots of countries that have, great manufacturing, and the United States is great for manufacturing. It's hard to be cost competitive manufacturing in the United States from my experience, but I wouldn't want to deter anybody from trying to find, USA manufacturing as well. But, we outsource manufacturing to these people who specialize in it, right? They've got the factory, they've got the infrastructure, they've got the employees. Then we import, and I have a freight forwarder that I really love the guy, man. I've met him in person. He's got a great family. So we're at this point, we're just friends. And he always has my back. And he helps me import into the USA. I've sold lots of different products on FBA, so I've run into different issues. And the nice thing is when your guy on the ground over there has your back, he helps me navigate, different potential issues, right? Like one of the issues I had was ping pong balls inside of a product. And he said, oh, well, there's gas in the ping pong balls and there's some shipping hazard, so we need to remove them. And he had his own team undo all of open all the boxes, basically take those out and then reassemble them. So just a quick aside there, but it's nice to have people that have your back. Ship them to the United States. I have them sent straight to the FBA warehouses, so I never actually have to touch the inventory or see it. And what you can do then is Amazon will alert you when they receive it. Then I can go in and say, hey, Amazon, why don't you send me 1, 2, 3 units, however many units I want to see. And I can check the quality, make sure everything's good if I need to. Also, typically, before you work with a company, you would interview multiple companies, by the way, and you would have them send you samples so that you can see the quality of their work. From there, though, Amazon's warehousing the inventory for you. When an order takes place on Amazon, they pick, pack, and ship it out to your customer. Unlike my previous interview where we talked about print on demand and Amazon merch, in this case, on Amazon merch, they handle customer service for you. In this case, with FBA and Seller Central, we handle customer service, but we don't have to have returns shipped to us. They'll still ship them back to the FBA warehouses. So it's pretty hands-off. And anytime that you're hands-off with physical products, that's always a good thing, because you can focus on scaling the business, whether that means taking it to the next level with marketing or launching new products, right? Expanding your brand. So there's lots of ways to scale.
So how long did it take you to scale your business to that 7-figure mark that is such an important spot to get into? And what's that kind of average monthly revenue today?
It took me, I think, in my 3rd year of business to reach the 7-figure mark. And I was really aggressive because I was a little bit misled doing my Amazon FBA research. A lot of I'm not trying to say throw shade at the influencers in the space, but a lot of people who were selling courses and whatnot were making it seem like this is a get rich quick scheme, which I know there's a lot of influencers in lots of spaces doing that. But one thing that I will note about FBA is that the entire process of launching new products takes quite some time, because even if you are really fast at research, at a minimum, it's probably taking a month to manufacture And if you're selling, big numbers of anything, you're most likely shipping by sea, which you might as well schedule a month for shipment by sea, right? So even if I want to launch a new product and I researched it and got it done in one day, that's 2 months basically before it even hits the warehouse. Then Amazon has to intake the inventory. And, so I just wanted to be transparent that like, it's definitely not a get rich quick type business. And, I like to use the example of if I just wanted to hit $1 million as quickly as possible on Amazon, you can sell something like Bluetooth headphones, right? Like we know the Bluetooth headphone market's selling tens of millions of dollars, potentially even a month. It's just one of those categories that's crazy. Like you're unlocking massive potential as a function of the demand in that space, but you're going to be matched by cutthroat competition. So I never jumped into any super highly competitive spaces like that where I could potentially become the number one bestseller. And because then you inherit these problems like, oh, well, how do I bankroll the next order? Because you also, if it takes 2 months to get from your order to the FBA warehouse, that's 2 months of like your money is tied up, right? You still have to send the money before they'll begin production. A lot of times you can send 30% upfront and then 70% when it's done. But either way, you got to be able to bankroll that stuff. And on the sales you make on Amazon through FBA, they also withhold funds for, I don't know if it's variable and if there's options, but I'm pretty sure it's like 2 weeks to a month. I'm not like I'm not like one of these hawkish people that's always watching my bank account to see the deposits because I have a lot going on. But like it's something like 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So you're not getting paid out immediately either. So it's just one of these things where the more sales you're making, the more revenue, the more money out to maintain. And then obviously anybody who's familiar with how Amazon works and their search algorithm, you don't just rank on the number one spot overnight. You typically rank on like page 2 or 3 or 4, right? If you're not on page 1, it doesn't matter what page you're on. Page 2 or page 50, no one's going to find you. So you really need to kind of get established. You need to throw some advertising money at your new products that are launched. Over time, they'll progressively rank organically better and better. And the ideal spot you want to be in is the organic rank 1 spot. The more products you have there, the more money you're going to make. So for me personally, getting to 7 figures, I probably had at least 10 SKUs live, like in my Seller Central account. The most I've ever had at one time was I think 14. Some of them were easy because they were just me working with the same supplier and going from, 1 product in a brand to 5 products in a brand, or 10 products in a brand.
A quick note for our listeners, make sure you check out the UpFlip blog, upflip.com/blog, where we've got lots of great information and interviews with entrepreneurs, including a complete guide in starting your own FBA business. Again, that's upflip.com/blog. Ryan, you've made mention of some of the many challenges that someone can face when they're starting an Amazon FBA business. What can a new business owner be doing to prepare for or overcome those challenges?
I like to attack things that I spend my time doing things that I'm passionate about just in general in life day to day. So if it's starting an FBA business, I'm not just doing FBA, Wednesday nights. Like Wednesday night was the night that me and my coach would meet every single week. So it wasn't just a Wednesday night thing for me. It was 7 days a week for me. Like if I wasn't meeting with my coach, it was still in the back of my mind. It was still like, if I had homework, I'm doing the homework. I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I'm watching YouTube. I'm soaking up other people's experience and using it almost as if it's like firsthand knowledge myself. So to me personally, this is just me speaking. I love just hearing other people's stories, other people's tips. There's so much information out there. Fortunately, with the information age, right? It's very easy to have a podcast like this one or, launch a YouTube channel. It's a little bit harder to have a YouTube channel that people actually care to watch. By the way, shameless plug, I am on YouTube. I started my channel, Ryan Hogue Passive Income, thinking it would be an FBA channel, but the algorithm ended up telling me, hey, if you talk about print on demand, that other business you're doing in parallel, you're going to get more viewers. So that's what I kind of pivoted to. But I do love FBA still. And I would highly recommend, find people out there doing it. Just listen to their stories, listen to their tips. Lots of free information out there. And then the UpFlip blog, like you plugged to, a great destination as well.
Can you talk us through some of the, I guess, like main expenses and maybe ongoing expenses of an Amazon FBA business and what kind of quick tips you can give on cash flow management? Because obviously, as you're waiting for the materials to get there, your cash is tied up. So how do you handle that portion of the business?
So it's a great question. And as I mentioned earlier, it definitely helped that I didn't race out of my day job. I worked as a web developer and actually had a second job teaching web development. So kind of complementary there, kept the money coming in. So I wasn't, hurting for cash. And, I never sent more money than I could afford to lose overseas. at least to a new manufacturer. You know what I mean? So that's just something that I know it might be easier said than done, but just generally speaking, when it comes to finances, I would always say secure your safety and your family safety first. Don't be gambling with too much money, but just me speaking there. One thing you can do, Amazon has a lending program. Now, I've never used it, but one of the most successful FBA sellers I know personally, like a relationship I built through having my YouTube channel, and I actually just interviewed him a couple weeks ago. His name is Matt. He said that he's used the Amazon lending program before as well, because he's doing 7 figures, this year in 2022. Like he's just absolutely crushing his orders. And, he's just been aggressive. He's launching new products. He has his process in place. Like he's got, a photographer that he uses to come up with incredible photos. He knows how to write the content for both the algorithm and for humans. And he's doing really well. So he's being aggressive. He's expanding. And he's used the Amazon lending program. That's one way you can access capital if you're, maybe a little tight. Also, he gave me a really good tip that I wish I had employed more myself. And that is like a business credit card. There's plenty of them out there, but find one that at least gives you some cash back on your spending. I forget which one he uses specifically, but he said that he was using the business credit card to place orders through Alibaba.com. If you guys are familiar with that website, it helps the buyer or the entrepreneur, whatever, find the manufacturers. When you use Alibaba, you don't have to send money through their money transfer program. And I often didn't. I often would just get the wire transfer info and then walk across the street to my bank and send them the money via a wire. But like Matt told me, he was oftentimes using the Alibaba transfer, which I had done a couple times. It just wasn't my first go-to. And he said that you could use your credit card there. So he was just getting crazy cash back on his credit card transactions, paying for all these things. So I thought that was a pretty sharp tip that I'd be happy to pass along.
Can you talk us through the types of products you're currently selling in your Amazon store, and are there particular products that are consistently popular for you? Obviously, like you mentioned, Bluetooth headphones consistently popular on Amazon, but what's really working for you?
Yeah, I mean, FBA sellers are often like very secretive of their niches. I think it's mainly just to prevent additional competition. And then also, being a kind of semi-public figure with YouTube, like, if 99 people like me and one hates me, the one person who hates me can often get me in trouble if they know what they're doing. So I don't typically tell the exact products I'm selling, but I'll tell you stories of products I don't sell anymore. For instance, I used to sell plastic cups, various types of them too. And you're like, Ryan, how did you arrive at plastic cups? Like themed plastic cups. Like if you were having a Hawaiian luau, I used to sell coconut and pineapple cups. Super random, completely outside of anything that I would ever see in my day-to-day life. But here's the thing. When I was talking earlier about niche research, Jungle Scout, the research tool, it's kind of a Chrome extension. But they also have like built-in web apps in their website. They can assist you in finding these profitable product opportunities. You can even input criteria and they'll kind of filter out products that aren't going to fit your criteria and help point you in the right direction. So through that, I mean, honestly, I could arrive at some weird products, and I mean, I don't know which one I found first, the coconut cup or the pineapple cup, but like one led to the other where I'm kind of like, hey, this works really well. These are kind of cheap, flimsy, but like, and by the way, I mean, when I say cheap, flimsy, I'm not trying to knock my own products. I'm saying I interviewed the suppliers on Alibaba. I had them send me samples. One cup specifically stood out, and compared to my competition on Amazon, which by the way, I would recommend, order your competition's products. See what's good, what's bad. I mean, if you're lazy, you can just read the reviews, but there may not be like good reviews in there that like actually give you an accurate description. So I found a supplier that sold, even as dumb as it sounds, like coconut cups, like these coconut themed plastic cups, but they were better. Like mine were just straight up better. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. They had a little bit extra here, a little bit extra there. They came with straws, and that was enough. I almost immediately became the number one ranked spot. And you're thinking, yeah, but how much money are you really making on coconut cups? Well, a couple $1,000s in profit a month. Like that's nothing to laugh at. It's not getting me rich, but that's just one SKU. So then I launched a complementary SKU. I launched the pineapple cups. One product I sold that failed was launching cappuccino mugs, I think was the primary keywords I used on them. Because you can say like coffee cup. Certain keywords that you kind of hone in on Amazon can really work to your benefit or work against you. I think the phrase I used that I thought was like the most valuable was like cappuccino mugs or like glass cappuccino mugs. In summary though, my coach told me initially, he's like, you probably don't want to be selling glass products that are going to have to be shipped from China to here and then from here to there. You know what I mean? That are getting messed up in the Amazon warehouse. Like I said, I've walked through those warehouses. Those boxes get dropped. They do. So yeah, the glass cups, man, they were selling like crazy right away, but that did not last because they had way too many get damaged in the mail. and had to cut those loose. So yeah, you just want to be mindful. I've sold in like super random categories like janitorial. I had that brand tied to my website, more like party supply type stuff. And some fun stuff too. I mean, like some of my friends and family still have some of those old products because it was just cool that they were all themed after my website. But yeah, I mean, it was more or less like from a profitability perspective, it didn't really check out. So I had to cut every single SKU except one loose. And one of them I still maintain to this day.
When you do have a new product, how do you size that initial order? And then how do you kind of make the decision to cut the SKU loose? Can you talk about that kind of process when you have a product that is quote unquote failing or becoming not worth the investment anymore?
For sure, man. Those are great questions too. To answer the first one, when you're sizing that first order, you'll never know for sure. But like I said, if you're willing to pay for like the Jungle Scout or Helium 10 tools, they can give you really accurate projections of how many units are being moved per day, per week, per month. And you can make informed decisions based on that. Now, you don't typically want to look at the bestseller because you're most likely not going to be the number one bestseller right away. So you'd probably want to look like halfway down page one, or at the bottom of page one. Look at those guys and use their numbers, their projections. This is your money at play. So it really does benefit you to try to take all these things into account. Because if you don't, you pay Amazon storage fees for the units that sit there. So just keep that in mind. I typically am aiming to have like 2.5 months to 3 months of inventory at all times. And depending on like what your product we're talking about, you may see a spike in demand at various times of year. Seasonality does come into play. There was a product I sold that was like in super high demand in spring, summer. And I remember one day, like, I didn't know why, but I sold $15,000 of just that product in one day. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm going to be rich. But the biggest problem I had was I wasn't selling 15K a day on average. Before that, I was selling probably a fraction. What ended up happening was everybody ahead of me sold out because the demand was so high. And then, I was next up. Guess what happened to me? I sold out before I knew it, So it's one of these things where there's some variability to it. And then, what do? You have to go to your manufacturer. I need more, But like, if you ship by air, that's also cutting into your margins. So to answer part 2 of your question, I'm like extremely meticulous about tracking my exact margins. I have this spreadsheet. I call it the workbook. It's in my like FBA course. And I just like, to me, like that's worth the cost of admission to my course alone, because it's just one of these like really long spreadsheets. People that hate Excel are going to hate me for it. But like when you use it, you plug in all of your exact numbers and you know exactly how much money you're making on each SKU. I try to be a little bit heartless and just say like, that's going to inform my decision-making process, because otherwise I'll get tied to products that may be not worth the time, the effort, not worth tying up money in, because keep in mind, even if it's making you 5% profit with upside, maybe to 10% profit, once you're ranked in the organic one spot, it's like, well, how much money is that costing me a month? Or just, the capital's tied up there. What if I were to launch a different product? You know what I mean? It's always opportunity cost. So for me, it's spreadsheet. I call it the workbook. And I'm constantly in there looking at my margins.
And then are there restrictions on what an FBA store can sell, or can you kind of list whatever products you want, and or do you need to get specific permission or approval before you start selling certain things?
There are restrictions. Like, I'm trying to think of a product I know for a fact that you cannot sell. Actually, you can probably find anything and everything on Amazon. The only time I've ever seen things that you cannot sell were like Amazon censoring certain words. You know what I mean? The word Putin overnight earlier this year, all of a sudden, everything that said Putin was just removed. So it's not a product type, I guess, but that did actually happen. Overnight, everything that said Putin, gone, didn't matter. They just did an algorithmic sweep and that was it. So that's always subject to happen. We saw some of that too with, I think, like Trump related stuff over a period of time. But when it comes to like products, I mean, you can find almost anything on Amazon. I think different categories are treated differently. And also different, within categories, there's subcategories. So I've had multiple products that I've launched where I had to provide an SDS, a safety data sheet, with specific information about what I was selling, just so that they can verify that, like, is it safe to be shipped? If you want to sell stuff with batteries, for instance, you need specific labels on the boxes, stuff like that.
So, I mean, what are the key ingredients of an excellent product listing?
Yeah, first and foremost for me, like, I think that primary thumbnail needs to be really good, and good is subjective. I get that. But Amazon requires the primary thumbnails to be on a white background. So that means exactly what it sounds like. If you try to cheat that, I do believe they've got like algorithmic sweeps that will detect, hey, it's not a white background, and get you in trouble. And if you get in trouble enough times, you can lose your selling privileges. So that's number one, and each category, each product is kind of different. I always say, like, take a cue from your competition, your most successful competition. Like, what are they doing well in their images? And the reason I'd say images first, like that's why what I come to first, is that's typically how most people shop. Not everybody, but most people, they're looking at the pictures. They're not reading the title. They're not reading the bullet points. They're looking at the pictures, and the best converting products often, or product listings, are answering all of the common questions in their pictures, whether that's through actually pointing out and adding text in the JPEG images. You can add like text and you can put an arrow, whether it's a coffee mug, you can say holds 15 ounces, something like that. Or, sometimes if it's I can't think of a product right now, but like you can actually show the different attributes that people are looking for in the pictures themselves and highlight them in the picture without text or without an arrow. So I would recommend just, be very familiar with your product niches, and even if it's like a niche that you know nothing about, because oftentimes it is, you just found it because it looks like it's going to be profitable. Study your competition, literally go in, read their reviews, look at their pictures. It's boring, but it's worth the time. Think of how long it takes you to make the money that you're about to invest in your product launch and be like, okay, I can justify spending the time there. I also like to recommend just counting your exact competition, because when Amazon says X number of results when you do a keyword search, it's typically not accurate. So like they obfuscate that. It's very broad. It's not, it's not going to give you an exact figure. So I recommend like you literally go to page 1, go to page 2. If you need to go to page 3, go to page 3. Look at how many people and count them that are selling exactly what you're selling and that's Prime eligible. So you have an accurate idea of like what you're up against. I do really highly recommend that. And then from there, you want to write your title. I typically say front load your title with the most relevant keywords. When you write bullet points, it's pretty popular to front load the bullet with maybe write in like all caps, or you can do like bracket all caps, something that humans should read, and then close the bracket. And then after that, write for the algorithms. So if you write in all caps, like best coffee mug on earth, and then after that, you start writing sentences out that are mainly including, sprinkles of relevant keywords and phrases for the algorithm to help you get indexed, that you don't anticipate a human will read, right? Because it might be, it might look like a wall of text. We've all seen that and been like, okay, on the internet, we typically don't slow down to read wall of text. But if we have like one sentence phrase in all caps, we might actually read it and be like, okay, cool, got it.
And is it a keyword cramming game, or are there certain like keyword and SEO best practices that someone should keep in mind for their product listing?
My personal feelings on this are that the value of keywords gets overblown. Like I think a lot of people that are inexperienced Amazon sellers think, and I was subject to this myself from listening to podcasts and whatnot, people would really harp on the value of keywords. And it's not that keywords aren't important, but all keywords are really doing, like, again, we have the keywords that are for humans, right? But we mainly have pictures for humans. So the keywords we type in are mainly for the algorithm to understand what it is we're selling and put us in front of the right potential customer prior to us having sales. Once we have sales, that's what they're going to trust. So above all else, if we've converted 500 people that searched for best coffee mug, they type into the Amazon search bar, best coffee mug, and they buy us, we've got 500 conversions. The algorithm says, okay, 500, that's a pretty good number. I think we can rank them on best coffee mug. But here's the thing. Does that mean we're in the first spot? Maybe, maybe not. Because what if there's a competition with 1,500 conversions on best coffee mug, right? So it's all relative to the niche you're in. And we don't actually know how many conversions we have or who the other person has, our competition may have. Like we don't know the actual discrete number of conversions, but if you actually go to Amazon and type in a keyword search, like it could be best coffee mug, could be one search, and the next search could be best coffee mug for Father's Day. You know what I mean? We just put a slight tweak on it, but those are going to be treated like different queries, and the results may vary based on the history of sales that took place on those keywords. And generally speaking, if you don't have conversions, you're going to struggle to rank organically at the top of page 1, even if you put like incredible, keywords in your listing but didn't have the conversions. The conversions always take precedent.
The kind of a natural extension of this line of questioning is what are some of the don'ts for a product listing?
The don'ts, almost like just the opposite of what you should be doing, right? Like you want to have those quality images. You want to maximize all of the images. So if Amazon lets you have 8 images, you want to have 8 images. You don't want to put 3 up. Even if the rest of your images aren't that great, you can put in what we call lifestyle images. Like I was looking at a product the other day. It was like a brush for combing your dog that like takes the hair out, the extra hair. And a lot of the images on that listing were lifestyle. But just by including the lifestyle images that aren't even that relevant, it looks like a quality listing. It's like a subliminal check mark in the customer's mind Because you know what really stands out when you're used to seeing products that have 8 images? It stands out when you have 2 images or 3. You're like, oh, what is this low quality? You start thinking like, oh, this might not be a quality product. It might just be a subliminal thing, right? But it's because you get so conditioned to seeing sellers go above and beyond to make these quality product listings. I would say don't keyword stuff. Like don't just do keyword, comma, keyword, comma, keyword. Like I would write cohesive sentences. Don't try to game the system with like the white thumbnail background because I've seen people do that and it doesn't work out in the long run. Don't ever upload products with duplicate titles. I don't know why Amazon takes it so seriously, but like they will literally ban you from selling. And if you have a duplicate title in their system, so they take that very seriously. For instance, also they let you do brand registry, which enables enhanced brand content. So it's why sometimes you're looking at a product listing and you see like in the middle of the page, a bunch of really cool looking pictures instead of just like a paragraph of text. So little distinctions like that, like Amazon kind of guides you in the right direction. That'll help you, increase your conversion rate, which will increase your organic rank, which will increase your clicks, which will increase your orders. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like this flywheel effect, the life cycle of an Amazon product. So yeah, you just want to kind of follow Amazon's guidance. And as far as what not to do, I just say use common sense too. Like look at your listings against your competition. If it's not up to par, then you got some work to do.
This is going to bring us to a section of the show that we call our Fan Blitz questions. These questions come from our YouTube community. So go find UpFlip on YouTube, join the community, and you can pose questions to future podcast guests. So for these, we're looking for, that quick 10-second answer, some of which that may be a challenge as I look at what these questions are. But here we go. So Alfonso Sandoval is asking, if I was to purchase an existing small Amazon FBA business, from your experience, what should I look for or be careful about before acquiring?
The number one thing that I would look for is the exact profit margins. The margins are getting squeezed more and more. Even just this year, like Amazon's increased the fees on the sellers, I think twice. When I say the fees, I mean, it could be FBA fees. It could be the referral fee. So even if you're not selling FBA, Amazon takes a fee of every sale that takes place on their platform just as their, hey, we're Amazon and we let you be here, fee. When it comes to ads too, just don't forget, people are running ads. So don't forget to factor in the ad spend as well. Let the bottom line dictate your decision-making, value that highly.
Night Kids Zero would like to know what the return rate is and what happens to the returned products.
Each product has a different return rate. I'm guilty of like not even knowing off the top of my head. Like the SKUs that I've got right now are all very low return rates because I haven't really like been pushing my FBA business recently too much. So I've got a lot of mainly just my best sellers in stock that are established, that have hundreds of reviews, that are ranked, if not organic rank 1, they're up there on page 1. So I'm not dealing with a high return rate. But that being said, you're always going to have some returns, whether it's a defective product, even from the manufacturing line, some things go wrong. Or if it's just, hey, someone changed their mind and, Amazon customers are entitled. They know, hey, it's Amazon. I can return anything. So they'll send it back to the FBA warehouse. And if it's like defective, there is like this section in Seller Central where you can tell Amazon, either you can have it automate disposal orders. So they'll dispose of these products that are defective, like that can't be resold. Or you can automate that they'll ship them to you. And they call that a removal order. So you can do that. Or I think if it's, able to be resold, it may just show up as sold by like Amazon warehouse deals or something like that. I'm not 100% sure exactly how that works, but I do think they can like turn around and sell at a discount returns based on the quality that the Amazon associate who intakes it marks.
One last question here. Hungry Club is asking, how do you rank on that first page when someone searches for a product?
Yeah, kind of like what I was mentioning, each query, like each specific set of keywords you type into Amazon search bar is treated differently. So like best coffee mug is going to have its own set of results and best blue coffee mug is going to have its own set of results. Their algorithm's intelligent enough to figure out that there's a lot of commonality there, but there may be one listing that, on blue coffee mug that has generated way more conversions that'll rank organic rank 1 on blue coffee mug. And then, on best coffee mug, that same product may be at the bottom of page 1. It's really going to boil down to, especially on like high volume search terms like best coffee mug as just one example, the more data they have, you can rest assured that like what you're going to see at the top of page 1 is almost always going to be the highest performing. It's not just about number of conversions though. This is me drawing from my web developer experience, but like, they can track like how many impressions a listing got. And if you can track how many impressions it got, you can also track how many clicks it got. Well, you can track click-through rate. From there, you can track conversion rate. You can track, hey, they added to cart. How much time did they spend on the page? Like, are they confused? You can track all these things in a web browser, and you can rest assured that Amazon's doing that. So they're using as much data as they can possibly use to figure out who ranks where. But I do recommend, like, when you run ads on Amazon, you can say, I want to advertise on this phrase. You can pay Amazon to know that you're going to show up when someone searches for that phrase. And, part of making a sale, the first step is got to get in front of somebody. When you advertise, you can get in front of them, and you can measure impressions. From there, you can measure click-through rates. Obviously, you pay per click, and that's a good place to get started.
That is going to do it for our Fan Blitz questions. Again, those come from our YouTube community. So go find UpFlip on YouTube, join the community, and post questions to future podcast guests. Ryan, before we dive back into some more Amazon FBA questions, I just want to ask you quickly about your print on demand side to your business. For those that either have not listened to our interview specifically about print on demand or just need a refresher, can you talk about when you added that to your business and just to briefly explain how print on demand differs from these other types of products we're talking about with Amazon FBA?
Yeah, print on demand was, I was kind of awestruck when I found out about it because I was already committed to doing FBA. And I don't think you should have to choose between the two. They're very complementary in my mind. So when I started doing FBA through Seller Central, Amazon Seller Central, I also found out about Amazon Merch on Demand is what it's called. And it's a separate portal, right? So I said Seller Central is where you go if you want to sell on Amazon. Well, there's actually other ways to sell on Amazon, but they're not like the all-encompassing solution. Like Seller Central is for anything and everything, right? We couldn't even think of a product that you can't sell. You just can't say the keyword Putin, for instance, right now. But with Amazon Merch on Demand, you can go and you can only sell like t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. And if they sell, the product will then be produced after the sale takes place. That's why it's called on demand. And what we do as sellers is we essentially just create the designs. We say, okay, make this design available on, a t-shirt. And then we provide the, search engine optimization, the title, the brand, the bullet points. And if we choose to, we can set up ads. And I just mentioned it in the context of Amazon Merch on Demand, but you can also sell print on demand through Amazon Seller Central. So those are kind of 3 income streams right there. You sell Amazon Merch on Demand. Then what I would do is I would take a t-shirt design that I listed on Amazon Merch on Demand, but they only have so many products available, right? And I'm restricted to what they offer. So if it's just a t-shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and a hoodie, which by the way, they have more than that, but I'm just saying theoretically, but they don't have a coffee mug, what I realized is I can then sell my t-shirt design on a coffee mug on Amazon Seller Central. And it's a little bit more nuanced than that, of course, but kind of a separate topic. But that's essentially what I was doing. So I call it almost like a double down, because I'm making my money selling this design on a shirt. Then I make money selling it on a coffee mug through Seller Central, where the coffee mugs, I can sell a coffee mug as opposed to, I couldn't do it before. And when I sell it through Seller Central, though, it's not FBA. It's FBM. It's fulfilled by merchant. So I don't have Amazon sitting on a cardboard box full of my mugs. If that sale takes place, I integrated a software application from a company who has the capacity to fulfill the orders on my behalf with my Seller Central account. So when that order takes place, they automatically see the order. They say, okay, Ryan sold a black 15-ounce coffee mug with this design. They create it, they ship it to the customer. Their software marks it as shipped and uploads tracking. So pretty good deal.
Thank you for that. And so shifting back into Amazon FBA mode, can you talk about your pricing strategy for products? Like, is there a certain profit margin you always are aiming for, or are the prices more influenced by the market?
I mean, it's a great question. In the past, I always thought, aim for 30% plus as a rule of thumb. It didn't mean you'd actually pocket 30% because if not everybody's going to be running ads 24/7. The amount of money you spend on ads probably varies by where you're ranking on specific sets of keywords. But I always felt comfortable with 30%. And my first product I ever launched, actually, I doubled the quantity because it allowed me to take my profit margin from about 33% to 45%. So I felt extra comfortable having never sold on Amazon FBA before, having that extra cushion of profit margin. It may not be in as high demand because I doubled the quantity of the units, but again, extra profit margin. So today, you may want to be more like 25% just because Amazon keeps taking more and more of the money. And if customers aren't willing to pay extra, then, the money's got to come from somewhere. So it'll come from you. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't let it deter me too much because also, it depends on how much you're selling these products for. If you can sell a product for $250 and, make a 10% profit margin, it's still $25 a clip. But then it becomes a function of like, do you have enough money in the bank to bankroll those products? Because if you're selling it for $250, chances are the base cost that you pay your manufacturer is also quite high. It tends to scale with the retail cost.
When you were first getting started, how did you go about attracting those initial customers to your first products?
For me, I had done the research, the validation. I knew it was a good space. And I honestly got really lucky because my first ever sale on Amazon FBA, it wasn't even like the order that I'd put in with my manufacturer. It was the manufacturer's samples that they sent me. So it was just the sample order that I got. And I was like, well, I don't have any use for these. I sent them into FBA, which you can do manually from your house as like a test. That's what my girlfriend's doing with her stuff downstairs actually right now. And I got a sale on the manufacturer's like samples that they sent me, and I got a 5-star review. So it was like, whoa, that was incredibly fortunate. And I hope Amazon's algorithm doesn't say, wow, that was probably a fake 5-star review and remove it. So that actually didn't happen, but I did get the review. So very fortunate. And how did I get it in front of the right customers? It was really just, generally speaking, when the actual real order came in and I had the inventory there to make multiple sales, mainly ads. It wasn't the most competitive space, but ads really help you hone in on the right keywords. And fortunately, I saw over time the suggested bid for my primary keywords. Because when you bid on keywords, as you would imagine, like it's an auction system. So certain keywords are more valuable than others. The price is dictated by the people bidding. So my first product, man, people were bidding like $5 a click. It was absurd, but I mean, it makes a little bit of sense when I mentioned that, we had really nice profit margins. Like my first product had 44%. I think I was listing it at $39.99. So, I could afford some clicks that didn't convert. It didn't mean that I also had to pay $5 a click, but on the high end, that's what people were paying, but also those people, you set a budget. If they run out of their daily budget, well, then the next highest bidder fills the ad inventory. And if, they only bid $3 a click, then, the person who bid 5 was just overpaying. So it's a little bit of a game, behind the scenes with ads.
I'm curious about on the marketing side here. If someone has a limited marketing budget as they're getting started, what are some of the marketing strategies that they can do that maybe move beyond the cost per click model, or even are there certain things they should be doing in product selection that go into, I'm not going to have a ton of money to market this product?
Yeah, kind of what I was just describing where, I'm a big fan of if I'm selling on Amazon, I want to run Amazon ads. It's not that you can't be successful running like off of Amazon ads, like a Facebook ad to your Amazon listing. And I actually had a Amazon agency, a really successful one, like tell me that was really working well this year. And they actually set up a campaign for me and we did a split test and I did the results on my YouTube channel and it worked really well. So I can't say that doesn't work. But if you're a limited budget, prioritize if you're selling on Amazon, prioritize Amazon ads. That's going to be very effective. And also in terms of like measuring the success rate, it's much easier. But you can also, like when I was saying $5 a click, those were for the mega primary keywords associated with my niche. But that being said, that was just one set of keywords. Now, those were the most valuable keywords, but there's also long tail keywords where maybe we add a word or 2 or 3, or there's just variations of the primaries that aren't generating the maximum search volume, but are still extremely valuable. And so find some of those. And you can do that by also running an Amazon auto campaign where you let Amazon essentially you just give it a budget and a bid per click, but you don't have to give it keywords. You can't give it keywords on an auto campaign. And Amazon will actually go and find keywords for you, through testing, through trial and error. So it's very easy to set up an auto campaign, as you'd imagine, because you really just, tell it to go and you tell it how much money it can spend. And then from there, you might find keywords that you didn't even think about that you can then move to your manual ad campaigns. And you can be very restrictive or protective with both your bids and your daily budget.
And then do you do anything specifically to encourage customers to review your products? And how do user reviews affect your visibility and sales as an FBA seller?
Yeah, reviews are huge on Amazon, on Etsy, on eBay, on every website, positive reviews, I should say, because obviously negative reviews can also really hurt. I remember I launched a SKU, got a 1-star review, and I was like, damn, do I just start over? Like the first review was 1 star and that product never really recovered. So that's another example of when I had to just cut one loose. But it was also a member of a brand with lots of other variations. So it wasn't a big deal to launch that one and then just kind of let it sell out and not reorder. As far as what I do to encourage reviews, like Amazon's real strict with that whole area. And there's weird rules and semantics to exactly what's allowed and what's not. So what I personally do is I use this software called Feedback Whiz. And it's not the only software out there that does it, but it's just the first one I learned. So I've been doing it for years. Feedback Whiz automates communications with my buyers and it hooks in via API to my Seller Central account. So I don't need to do anything manual other than when I first set it up. I set up some email templates, because I was a web developer, so I like to get in there, customize things, etc. You don't even have to really do that. Like they provide you templates that can pull in like dynamically your product image, your product title. So it's very easy to use, very easy to work with. It's within Amazon's compliance. And I just use that and it automates through the buyer seller messaging to people that still have that enabled. The request for honest feedback, I think, is what's allowed, right? I think you're supposed to say request honest feedback, but not request like a 5-star review or something.
What's the biggest mistake or misstep you made when you were growing the business? And in hindsight, is there anything you could have done differently to avoid it?
I mean, generally speaking, I haven't had any like catastrophic moments, So for me, it's been pretty good, and I'm a pretty like confident person. So even when I've had tougher like product launches, it's kind of like I know the script, for like my first ever launch was the most heart-wrenching one because I didn't know, so many unknowns. But once you have a couple of successful product launches, if you have one that's not successful, it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to try to get my money back and I'll just move on to the next one, So that's kind of how I feel.
Can you talk us through some of the systems and tools that you're using to manage the business? I mean, you made mention of your Excel spreadsheet and specifically stuff that goes beyond the tools that might be there in the Amazon dashboard.
Yeah. Well, I will say like my favorite tool is it was by Jungle Scout and they ceased. I don't know what to say. They killed the tool off for some reason. And it used to be called Fetcher. And what was great about Fetcher was that it integrated via API so that like I had my spreadsheet, which gave me my exact margins. But what the spreadsheet could never do was tell me as a function of ad spend what my even more exact margins were. So Fetcher had access to that. And it gave me my like perfect, like, hey, end of year taxes are due. What did you make down to the penny? It gave me that number, so I loved Fetcher. There's actually like software out there that, can replace it now, that I've found. But, just Fetcher always has a place in my heart because I certainly missed it. And I used to publish income reports on my YouTube channel every month. And then when they killed Fetcher off, I like did a couple more and then I was like, all right, I'm done, because it was just so hard. But yeah, there's a software called Profit Cyclops that I did a review on just a couple weeks ago that basically replaces everything that Fetcher did. In terms of like research and validation, Jungle Scout is my go-to, but I also know Helium 10 is a great option. So I mean, if you had to coin flip between the two, just go with whichever one's cheaper. And Feedback Wiz automates my requests for feedback. Now, I don't consider that a requirement to use, but it's certainly for me has been worth it, but a lot of over time, more and more buyers are disabling the buyer seller messaging because I think they're just over getting the spam from the automated messaging. From there, like I had launched like a Shopify store, for my brand. Ultimately, I later decided, what I'm going to do. Because I, whenever possible, I would have a website for the brands because obviously web developer, so it's not that hard for me to launch websites. I would put the website URL like on the products. If I could, I would sneak it on there. And, you can typically pay your manufacturers to do that. Like I would pay a fraction of a penny. I think it was like half a penny per unit to get like on my first ever product to get the website put there. Later on, I just decided like, I'm going to redirect that to my Amazon listing. Or actually, no, not even the listing, but to my Amazon brand registry store page. And that will be my website because Amazon loves when they see off-site traffic being pumped to them. That helps you, not only help you obviously generate more sales, but their algorithm definitely prefers that. From there, like you want to be in brand registry. So that requires getting a trademark. There is inside of Amazon Seller Central, something called IP Accelerator through their like partner program. If you do the IP Accelerator, you don't have to wait basically a year for your trademark to go live. You can just partner with like one of Amazon's approved partners. I'm sure Amazon gets a cut. And within 2 weeks, you can be in brand registry. It'll still be a year before your trademark goes live, but at least you can basically cut to the front of the line. I'm trying to think of like others. Oh yeah, I use a service that automated my reimbursements because you essentially can't automate it with software, but sometimes Amazon like messes stuff up and they owe you money, but like they just won't pay you. And they make it so that you have to manually file the claims. So I found a service that will like essentially file those for me. A human will, because you're not allowed to do it automated. And they keep like, I don't remember if it was like 25 or 40%, but I'm still better than nothing because I wasn't doing it. And I think that's basically it.
What's a listing hijacker and how can they hurt a business? Is there anything FBA store owners can do to prevent it?
Yeah, hijacker is on Amazon. Remember how I said you're not allowed to have duplicate titles, otherwise they'll just ban you? It seems like such a small infraction, but Amazon really doesn't want spam in their catalog because they know that can degrade the customer performance. So what they want is if you're going to sell a product on Amazon, that you go and like you can do this right now, go pick something on Amazon. There should be a link on the product page that says have one to sell ? So you can click that. And that's how they want you to list. And there's this thing called the buy box. Like as a customer, we probably don't worry about what the buy box is. But as a seller, having the buy box means when someone goes to that listing and clicks add to cart or clicks buy now, that you get the sale. because in theory, like me, you, and 10 other people can have the same, I don't know, like coffee cup to sell that's from the same manufacturer, the same color, same size. We're selling the exact same coffee cup. So we would all go to the same listing and create an offer. And, and you might sell it for $19.99. I can come in as a hijacker and sell it for like $19.98, and undercut you by a penny. And oftentimes that means I'll get the buy box. And where this really sucks is if you're launching your own branded products, you're not in brand registry yet. Brand registry helps open up the door to removing hijackers. And they even have, it's like called like Project Zero, I think, where they turned over tools, I don't think to every seller, but to some that were invited. Like I got the invite where you can like self-moderate your listings, but they basically make you go through a quiz to prove that you're not going to abuse the tool. So yeah, hijackers just like basically jump on, try to sell similar products to what you're selling or the exact same and undercut you.
Maybe it's listing hijacking, but what's the most frustrating thing about running an FBA store? And any advice for coping with that frustration?
Yeah, it's probably, yeah. I mean, the most frustrating thing I've ever gone through for sure was that. Also just Amazon, man. Amazon, if I'm being real, like they don't really, it doesn't feel like they have your best interests at heart for sellers. Like they don't seem to look after their sellers. Also, support has gotten a lot worse over the years, noticeably worse, harder to reach out to them. They used to have like on-demand phone support. They don't have that. It's just getting worse and worse. So it's just a trend that's not going the right direction.
That actually segues us nicely into this question, which is what's different about owning an Amazon FBA store today than when you opened in 2016? And any current trends or shifts that owners should be aware of?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the support thing is a big one that stands out in my mind. Like even if you're doing nothing wrong, like their catalog is so large that when they police it, like I was saying, like they do an automated sweep for the word Putin. Well, boom, you might have a bunch of SKUs just get removed and they don't care. They're unapologetic. They're gone. That's just what it is. There was a couple years back, there was something related to pesticides. And like, I didn't care. I don't sell anything related to pesticides. It didn't matter though. So many of my listings were flagged as like having been related to pesticides when they weren't. And then you have to go through like all these, multi-step processes with, support giving you copy paste answers to try to get your like products that have nothing to do with it reinstated. So it's just, I'm not trying to talk people out of Amazon. Like I said earlier, I love when there's a barrier of entry and when there's difficulty because I'm willing to put in the work and I know that's going to reduce my competition. But also, you have to actually put in the work and go through the ups and downs.
If people were only to take one thing away from this interview, what do you hope that is?
I'm just a huge proponent of, getting over imposter syndrome, believing in yourself, projecting success in your own mind, intaking a lot of information from other people's experiences and getting after it, whatever it is you want. If you just want to be rich, like there's plenty of ways to make money in life. So I don't know if FBA is like top of my list for, making money online, but it is certainly passive. It's got a big learning curve up front. But once you're like ranked, and once you've launched a product, you can launch the second product in half the time. You know what I mean? It just gets easier and easier. And it's not a business that I think requires a lot of upkeep. Like I said, if you're not actively launching new products, then your day-to-day becomes keeping your existing products in stock and maintaining your ads. So it can be, and then the longer your product's been alive, those things become more and more optimized and require less and less time and attention. So I just would say, like, don't be deterred from starting an FBA business. And there's money to be made. The margins are getting slimmer. So I don't know if it's going to make you rich. It's certainly making some people rich though. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. But there's a lot of complementary ways to making money online in addition to FBA. And that's really how my journey started. And it led me to some other really cool stuff like print on demand. So I'd invite you guys to check out, Ryan Hogue Passive Income on YouTube. I talk about a lot of the different ways I make money online.
Last question here. What's your favorite business book and why?
I don't know, man. I haven't read any business books. I'm terrible at reading. I love audiobooks. And I mean, I can't even say audiobooks really. I just love YouTube. I have a TV above my triple monitors and I just run YouTube like all day. I love finance channels specifically. So I'll give a shout out to Gregory Mannarino, if anybody. He has like daily 2 videos, one before market, one after market. And I'm also into the stock market as well. So I'll give him a shout out.
That is going to do it for this episode of the UpFlip podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to our newsletter to get business insights delivered straight to your inbox. You can also find more resources and advice at the UpFlip Business Hub. Ryan Hogue, fulfilled by Amazon and all sorts of other passive income expert. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite.